critical comparisons to Elden Ring abound. The game is the latest From Software game linked aesthetically and mechanically, whether that's Dark Souls, Demon's Souls, or Bloodborne. Its open world is frequently likened to Breath of the Wild. Some idiot even compared it to F1 2021, for God's sake. But as I traverse the lands between, one comparison resonates most for me: Shadow of the Colossus, the 2005 PlayStation 2 classic that earned a remaster and remake on the PlayStations 3 and 4, respectively. There are many similarities. Both games exude weird and mysterious melancholy. Their environmental storytelling evokes ruined civilizations, ancient wisdoms squandered or corrupted. HUDs and UIs minimize text labels or explanation. Dialogue is relatively rare and more precious for it. Rare, too, are objective markers or collectible blips on a map, a welcome antidote to the open world means checklists, design principles of Arkham City, Marvel's Spider-Man, or most of the Assassin's Creed franchise. For me, though, the key similarity is scale. When I forced myself to play Spider-Man 2 for my last video, another failure I noted was a lack of scale. The depopulation of streets, repetitive and low-resolution textures, and anarchic camera left me with an impression not of surmounting skyscrapers in Manhattan, but bouncing off slipshod miniatures or painted cardboard boxes. This problem is both technical and aesthetic, but it's more than either. Breath of the Wild, undoubtedly a technical and aesthetic masterpiece, never quite nailed for me the experience of being a tiny Link in a massive world. Even Spider-Man, in his modern games with cutting-edge level of detail and smooth control, registers like an action figure thrown around a toy box. That's in part a trade-off for navigational tools as wonderful, efficient, and aerial as web-slinging or a hang glider. Those tools, and the resulting compromise, are choices based on specific game design philosophy. Anyone who's flown on an airplane knows that massive landscapes become tiny seen from enough distance. I can't describe in any detail the perceptual paradox by which this happens. I'm no expert in optics. It's enough for our purposes to recognize the difference between actual and perceived distance. Fisheye lenses or wide fields of view increase the delta between the two. Consider why objects in your rear-view mirror may be closer than they appear. At the heights and speeds of Breath of the Wild or Spider-Man, the surrounding environment shrinks and blurs. When you stop on a precipice or a skyscraper ledge, the game pulls back the camera to provide a grandiose view of its technical achievements, which paradoxically shrinks your perception of the relative sizes of mountainsides and skylines. Or consider how far back the camera drops in, say, Super Mario 64 as you fight King Bob-omb. Mario's a red dot, and the king himself is modestly sized from that perspective. These are deliberate concessions to player perception and comfort, even as they dilute the relative scale. It's a standard, reasonable approach to game design. Prioritize the player's ability to comprehend and respond in order to minimize frustration or confusion. But for Shadow of the Colossus and Elden Ring, frustration and disorientation form the center of their game design. Consider traversal first. Shadow of the Colossus has no flight mechanic, and if you can fly in Elden Ring, I haven't discovered how yet, unless we count a horse double jump gone wrong. Outside of fast travel nodes, distance becomes a counting of steps, whether feet or hooves. Here, Shadow cleverly reframes a PS2-era technical limitation as an asset. Long stretches of barren valley and waste sit between landmarks, reducing the processing strain of draw distance detail, but also ensuring that when you lift your sword to light the path, first and foremost you register the enormity of the distance ahead. Recognition of that distance precedes noticing the relative size of the landmark, so that once you do see it, it reads properly as a massive, intimidating artifact. But the most dizzying scales come up close to massive entities, whether the colossi in Shadow or a rock giant wielding a glowing cerulean great bow in Elden Ring. Field of vision is again key here. Once you're close enough to swing your sword, it's impossible to see the whole shape of these enemies. Your field of vision won't retreat unless you retreat. Even then, in Elden Ring, the camera never leaves you, forcing perception of enemies either as distant and massive, or only the latter and thus more terrifying. In Shadow, the camera pulls back further, for a generous view up to an enemy's knee instead of its big toe, but it never untethers from Wander's shoulders, so your brain never diminishes the foe's bewildering size. I'm often frustrated in these games, battling both a gigantic toothed monstrosity and my inability to understand my position relative to those teeth. But both games build theme and aesthetic around this disorientation. It's the sometimes unspoken point in our Souls games too hard discourse. You're impossibly small in the face of your objectives. The world is overwhelming, tantalizingly arcane, and always menacing. Why shouldn't battle and traversal emphasize that menace? When you do drink in the vistas, they're a well-earned reflection between intense battles. Distant landmarks represent either former epic struggles or the sites to which you will soon need to travel to face yet another teeth-grinding attempt. The world lives around you not because it's overpopulated by NPCs or collectibles, but because your experiences paint detail on the scenery, first as hazy wonders, and later as sites of lingering memory. It's been years since I played through Shadow of the Colossus, but unlike the digital smears of Arkham City or Spidey's Manhattan, many features and moments within its forbidden world have permanent residence in my mind. I expect Elden Ring will be the same for much the same reason. For all their ability to generate unseen and impossible worlds, it's rare that video games offer true discovery or wonder. And we should cherish games like these for striving so savagely to leave you with just that above all else.